Just flicking the switch.
Light is on.
Yes, it is.
Put the clapper in front of your face. When you hit the clapper, you're on the air.
Thanks. Welcome to Talking Peace with the Western New York Peace Center, being recorded here at Think Twice Radio in the home of the future. Also the home and of our very kind producer, Richard Wicca. Thanks, Richard. And also, we are coming to you on WBNY 91.3 FM, Buffalo's original alternative radio station coming out of Buff State. We appreciate our friends at Buff State. It also reminds us to think of our indigenous friends, our Haudenosaunee friends who have taught us to do what they do, which is to remember the people who are part of the event, to think of the love, and especially the love that is shown and the caring that is provided by Mother Earth, that provides so many things that we need, and our waters, that our water is life for us, for all of the creatures, all of the plants, the medicinals and the food plants, all of the creatures that are the swimming, four-leggeds and flying creatures, and all of the different elements, the thunder beings and the grandmother moon and brother sun, and all of the instructions that we've been given by our Creator to remember our Creator, and that we should act as originally instructed so that life can continue in this creation. So it reminds us, too, that we are on stolen Haudenosaunee lands that are from the Seneca, and that we acknowledge them, and we stand for indigenous rights and for caring for the creation and environmental justice. So I'm Vicki Ross. I am the board co-chair at the Western New York Peace Center, and very privileged to be here with this wonderful group who's been working very hard for the March for Our Lives. And our topic is March for Our Lives and gun violence, and what we need to do, how we need to stop it. So I'm just going to go, as our Seneca Haudenosaunee friends do, counterclockwise. So we'll just go around to Ekaete Bailey. Hi, Ekaete.
Hi.
We so appreciate that you just stepped right in and very immediately when you saw that March for Our Lives was looking for sponsors, and you started up a march. And then to Rachel. And I should mention that you do work on diversity and equity and inclusion as a professional in your day job.
Yeah.
Plus being a mom. Yeah, a partner, a wife, and a mom. And Rachel McCarthy, welcome.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Who's a wonderful volunteer with this whole effort. She reached out to Ekaete, and is also a mom, is also working very hard on this march. And last but by far not least, our fearless leader and executive director, Deidra EmEl. Hi, Deidra.
Hello. Peace and love.
Peace and love. And just so grateful for you, for all you're doing. And I know it's a very busy time. It always is, but more so than ever before. After the tragedy and the massacre, I mean, things are just on a whole nother level in Buffalo.
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
Yes, it is.
It truly is. So why don't we go from there to what we like to do, just to sort of get our heads in the right frame of mind, is to be in the good mind, as our indigenous friends say, is to think about, the values that we want to bring into this conversation and into this issue. So we could just go around just like we did. So Ekaete, what would you say?
So basically, I don't really have the words to explain how May 14th has impacted not only me, but my neighbors, my community, friends. I did not lose anyone that is a direct relative, but every single person who was murdered was part of my community. And the impact of that trauma is, I don't know. I really hope that it's something that, we all can work through and learn from and change from. But that's why I'm doing this. And then to top it off, 10 days later, we have what happened in Texas. So it's just trauma upon trauma. Now you have mostly elders involved here. You have children involved. So, the people that we're supposed to be protecting the most.
Right.
And I want to see real change.
Right.
That's it. I want to educate, create awareness. I think that there's so much I don't know. So I know there's so much that, my fellow Buffalonians just don't know about gun legislation and, what's allowed and what's not allowed and what's legal and what's not legal. And if we look at the example of other countries that have better gun legislation, we see less, significantly less gun violence and gun death.
Mm.
Absolutely. No, you're so right about all of that. And anyway, we're just grateful for you and for all the work you're doing. And it is so hard. It's so very hard.
Mm-hmm.
Rachel?
For me, some of it is about justice and seeking justice for the people that have been harmed and who can't, the victims of the Tops massacre and Uvalde and the elders and the kids, like Ekaete said, who were innocent victims and aren't able to seek justice for themselves and aren't able to, undo what was done or right the wrongs. And so it's about standing up for them and anyone else who has been a victim of gun violence or people that have lost loved ones to gun violence, and standing with them and trying to make change so that people don't have to continue to deal with this. And it's just using whatever power that we all have or whatever kind of influence we might be able to wield and using that to better the lives of others and do what we can to, prevent this from happening again.
Yes. Thanks so much.
Definitely.
Deidra?
Yeah, so values that I bring to the table is connection, humanizing other humans, and understanding roots to issues. I think that we all are aware that gun violence it's more of a symptom and not the sickness. And so I'm always looking for the roots of a situation, the root causes, and seeing how that can be destroyed, how that can be uprooted, so that we no longer are cutting off branches of disease, but that we are digging the disease plant from the roots and, starting over again, and with a clean slate, with love in our hearts and connection, solidarity in our communities. So, yeah.
Well, thanks. Yeah. So connection, so important. And the root causes, absolutely, which they run deep, and they run very deep, very, very deep. And so much for us to do about it. I'm going to bring, I almost, not always, but I very often have to add truth and love, just because Dr. King said, unarmed truth and unconditional love will have the final word in reality. And that is what we hope and pray and work for, every day.
Right.
Every day. And the truth is that we are just an incredibly violent society, that we are based on racism and misogyny, and though that's deep in our roots, and love, which the love is that unconditional love that we have, that we're all connected, that we're all human beings together in this creation, that we, need to see that and feel that in the deepest way, because every life is as precious as every other life. And that, anyway, so yeah, love. It's for the love for the people who are gone that we're missing. It's for the love of our neighbors or our people who are suffering. And even the people who are not suffering, they will come to suffer. They will come to suffer through this. Anyway. So I just want to add that so many guns get used for domestic violence and suicide more than any two other things.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, and I can get into that a little more, but let us talk about how this came about a little bit, and we've sort of been talking about it, but when after the massacre, I know everyone in Buffalo has really been traumatized, shaken, and the people, if and when the people aren't, I want to say that itself is also a very deep hurt, too. For those who aren't, for those who don't see or feel that connection, it's like you said, Deidra. So I want to just say, this city is hurting right now. And we were before the massacre.
Right.
I felt it. It was a brutally difficult election. It has been, there's all the age-old problems, and our next show we're going to talk about the history of racism and resilience in Buffalo. So these are not new problems. So anyway, if we just go around and say to each person a little bit more about how you got involved and where you see, what are your hopes for the usefulness of the march, and then we'll get into the logistics of the march. Maybe we want to go. So Ekaete, why don't you start, because you've done so much heavy lifting.
So I'm learning a lot from the organizers. I'm learning a lot from the local organizers like yourself, and even our volunteers in Rochester. We even got outreach from people in Syracuse. So I'm learning a lot these past 6 days. I believe March for Our Lives just decided to do a march on the 25th or 26th. And so we don't have a lot of time to organize this. So I'm learning a lot from them, from that organization. And it's something that gun violence is something that I tried to ignore for a very long time. You can't ignore it anymore. And so just to know that there's laws, for example, out there that say we can't sue the gun industry. I don't know all of the details of the law, but just to have a law like that is a problem. Background checks, enhanced background checks, these basic things, to your point, Deidra, they don't get to the root. And a lot of my Christian brothers and sisters in particular, they're praying. Like, I know other faiths are as well, for sure, all faiths. I happen to be Christian, and we are praying, as we should. And we want to get to the root. Mm-hmm. At the same time, until we get to the root, do we not need to set up guardrails? Should we not set up some kind of parameters to try to save lives in the meantime? Right. So that's why the 4 goals are so important to me for this march. Really creating education and awareness and helping people to petition for an advanced and enhanced background checks, number 1. Repealing that law, that says people can't sue the gun industry.
Right.
And of course, banning or significantly limiting assault rifles. I don't believe that in any way impedes Second Amendment rights. People can still own arms, just not assault weapons. That's not what the forefathers had in mind when they wrote it. Of course, the technology was not there. But even if it was, I'm positive they did not have that in mind when they wrote the Second Amendment. So It's been oversized. It's been overstretched. It's been, fit into a narrative that works for people because they want the guns, not because it's best for society or even best for individuals. That's my opinion.
Thanks.
That's right.
Rachel?
Yeah. So just speaking to how I got involved, basically after the Tops shooting, I was already reeling. And then there was the Uvalde shooting, 10 days later. And at that point, I was just like, what in the world can I possibly do to do anything? I signed up for Everytown, and they held a virtual rally for federal action. And on the virtual rally, they mentioned the March for Our Lives. So I went to the website and looked it up and looked for any marches that were already registered in Western New York. And that's when I saw the one that Ekaete had started. And I reached out to her on Facebook just thinking, I don't know if this is something that this person is serious about, or, if they are even going to answer my Facebook message. I don't really Facebook message people very often, especially people I don't know, but I just felt so compelled to try to do whatever I could within my power to do something. So fortunately, Ekaete responded saying that she was putting this together and could use some help. And I wish I could be doing more. But now I'm just, doing whatever I can to drum up support from others, engagement, awareness, education. I think it's so easy to become numb to everything, or to just move on to the next hot button issue, or feel so helpless that you just kind of curl up and decide that there's nothing to be done, or it's beyond your control or outside of your power. And I've been interested in politics in the past, and I've thought about how to be most effective. And, my husband suggested, why don't you just start helping to get involved, at a grassroots level and work within the community and help organize or fundraise or anything like that. So that's sort of where I'm getting started, and where I feel like I can have the best impact right now. And it's hard to think about, it's hard to connect the dots and to see what little, not little, but it can be a little bit daunting to feel like what we're doing, will it make its way up to the decision makers and the people in power? I don't know, but it's better than doing nothing. So if that's the alternative, you just got to do what you can.
Right. That's right. I would, there's a short story, of doing what you can, by Wangari Maathai. She's a peace prize winner, Nobel Peace Prize winner. And, she talks about the story about the hummingbird, and, it was in the forest, you had a forest with all these animals, and there was a forest fire, and all the animals were just, watching the fire as it ablazed, and basically they didn't do anything about it. They didn't know what they could do about it, and so they just began to run, go away from the problem. But this hummingbird looked back, and he saw, like a pond, of water. And he began to get little sips of water, as much as he can hold in his beak, and begin to put it on the fire. And the animal said, what are you doing? You can't, whatever you're doing is not going to help the situation. But he said, I must do what I can, and if everyone does what they can, that is within their way, within their hands, then we can make a difference. We can. Small groups can change the world. One person at a time, one mind at a time. I think that for me, I haven't, this is a little new for me, even though I'm the Peace Center director. I've looked at gun violence in different ways, I believe that, yes, legislation should be, there should be, legislation and laws around gun control. But again, I always look at the individual, as people, like they say, people that kill guns. I mean, that people that kill people, not guns. However, guns is a tool, right? It's a weapon / a tool. But what is in the mind of that individual? What is in the heart of that individual to use such a weapon to take the life force of someone else? Those are my questions that helps me to look at this situation further. What are the rules of what is the disconnect in our communities that people feel that it's okay to use guns on a day-to-day basis as a tool? Where's the disconnect? And when I look at the issues at hand, a lot of it comes down to poverty. A lot of it comes down to the need and want of resources. And you use these weapons / tools to overcome another group or individual to take what they have, or to eliminate them from being in your way to access some type of resource for survival or for greed. But it's usually a resource, and basic resources, food, shelter, clothing in the so-called African-American community. Why do we see gun violence every day? We say, oh, it's gangs, it's turf. What does the gangs and turf do? They're business people, right? They have places in which they conduct business, whether it's illegal or not. Why are they conducting business? Because they are making money to provide either for their households and for their, for their families. Why do they think they need to go to drugs? So you see how the line keeps going down. Well, because they don't have such and such education, or they've been in jail so many times they can't get certain jobs, so they got a felony. So it goes down this rabbit hole to where people want to be empowered, and guns and the whole violence idea helps for a person to gain control fast, instead of going, systematically looking at the situations, the systemic racism or the systemic issues. So that's the faster way.
You're making me think of, now we just finished a Peace Jam group that actually Deidra did most of the organizing and but one thing that we've done in the Peace Jam group in previous years, not every year, but many years, was we do a thing with the youth, children and youth who are in the group, about what was the root cause of violence, which was a very interesting thing. So some of the big things that probably the top two were poverty and misunderstanding of a sort. That means, that love that's been thwarted or hurt, right? Which is when we start talking about...
you're talking about racism, the root cause of racism?
Well, it was the root cause of violence is what we were talking about. And that goes everything from war to crime to domestic violence to, it was just violence, any violence, right? So there are a lot of different parts. And certainly, the basic needs not being fit is a big, huge one. People's, own hurts and trauma in the past is a big, huge one. There's all these other ones, as you say. And one of the things is also, and greed and power and control is another big, huge one. And, when we look at the modeling by our government of might is right, then what is that teaching people? Because our army is bigger, because we have more nuclear bombs, is that what makes for power? So it goes very deep when we start looking at all these different things. And I want to say back to, there's so many different ways that the guns get used, but when you look at the fact that we have more, it's like we have like 400,000 guns in this society, and we have like 330,000 people, or
Wow.
330 million. I'm sorry, 400
Yeah.
million. 400 million guns. That's what I meant to say. 400 million guns sometimes my decimal points. 400 million guns in the society and 330 million people, right? That is, So, and also we know lots of people don't have a gun. So that the people who really amass some guns, they're getting some guns. I mean, they've got, arsenals, whole arsenals. So, I mean, anyway, so why don't we talk about the march a little bit and the goals and the goals, if do you want to, as we're going around, or you want to go the other way around, we could.
I know Ekaete. Am I saying it correctly?
Almost. Ekaete. Yeah.
Ekaete. Sorry about that.
No worries.
Oh, you mentioned the goals earlier,
Right.
and I'm just so thankful for you all, because we didn't talk about how the Peace Center got involved in the march.
No, we didn't. Go ahead.
This is something Vicki has been leading the last few years, March for Our Lives, campaign. And we were just talking about it on Thursday. I think we reached out on Thursday and we started, we reached out to, the two of you, on Thursday and began to, because she was saying the same thing, hey, we need to, this is the next step, this is our next thing. We had along with Anchor, collaboration of different organizations, we were doing a community distribution on Thursday. So while we were talking, we were like, well, we have to, June 11th is March for Our Lives. We should, go ahead and, start planning for that. And so when we looked it up, we said, hey, there's a couple of other planners already. So let's see if they want to collaborate. And so, like I said, I'm just thankful for the spirit and the energy and the heart, of all of you have, just jumped in and, just started, just doing the organizing. So we are just humbled and excited about working with you all. And, we're just as a team, just here as a team. And we all want to see change. And we want to hear the voices of that community. I think as well, with Ekaete, working and living in and around, Jefferson, Utica area. I actually, part of my growing up was I lived on East Ferry. And I used to go to what we called the Jefferson Library at the time, which is Beverly Grace Center, I've taught in that area at the old YMCA, Humboldt YMCA. I have taught, we had Peace Jam at the Meriwether Library. Right. So I have lived and I, continue to work in that area in different capacities. My mother, attend, she went to the Tops all the time. I would go to the store for her there. The first time I heard what's going on, I called her to see where she was. Because that's how, and I was calling from our congregation that was on Butler Avenue. That was just up the street, so that's, that's my interconnection, with this. situation. So so going back to the march, I'm just excited to work with individuals, organizations, and so on that just stepped up to the plate.
I want to make a special mention too of Kat Moore. So Catherine or Kat Moore is not able to make it with us tonight, but she is another one of the people who stepped up right off the bat, and she's the one that you got together with Ekaete at the same time as we were getting together with the two of you to say, hey, can we, shouldn't we collaborate? And of course, that's
right.
what, and she's a 19-year-old college student, just started at Nazareth College. And
Awesome.
she's working or class, something like that. I can't remember exactly. Yeah.
But I think it's so great because she really, that bringing that younger.
Yes.
I just remember when I was a college kid, and you really feel like you still have that hope and that optimism that you can make a difference and that you're going to change the world. And so it's just, she's not quite jaded yet, but it's just so refreshing to have her and her excitement and her network. I mean, she says she has a lot of people that are interested and involved. And I think, we always say it's like these next generations that are going to be the ones that really help make a difference. And so it's nice to have her involved in the march organizing as well.
So, Ekaete, can I ask you we haven't even really talked about the logistics of the march at all yet. So if you want to sort of dive into that.
Yes.
Great. Thanks.
So it will be on Jefferson Avenue. It will start mid-block before Glenwood. So we're going to, working with the Buffalo Police Department, have the street blocked from a little bit past Bell's Dry Cleaning, because we want to make sure people can get in and out.
Right.
That's one of the main businesses there. A lot of the other businesses, you'll still have access to the side streets, just not Jefferson, from about midpoint to Glenwood. We'll start there, walk slowly, peacefully. We're here to respect the families and the victims. We will have signs because we want to make sure we're educating and creating awareness. We will walk 3 blocks to Riley, but before we get to Riley, the memorial site, will have a short program featuring community members, in particular people of color, in particular Black people. So right now we have the poet laureate of Buffalo who committed, Jillian Hainsworth. We have what's the name of the group?
I'm going to say we probably have the Lifesavers. The youth group associated with the Stop the Violence Coalition, who is also a co-sponsor. But it depends because they're most of them belong to one family. Many of them belong to the one family that actually has. They're waiting to hear when there's going to be this memorial service for somebody in their family. So if that is that weekend, then they can't be there. But if they're going to be in Buffalo, they're going to be there. And they're going to perform. Actually, they're performing this Wednesday, means today, Wednesday, what is it? The 1st. The 1st of today. June. They will have performed on the 1st of June as, what do they call it? An opening act or something for Kenny G tonight.
Oh, that's wonderful.
Yes, that's how good they are. They are so good.
That's awesome.
They've also been in Peace Jam and in Camp Peace Prince and everything else. They are wonderful young people. When we had an environmental justice march, and we had Michael. I'm slipping his name, but we had the person who created the hockey puck graph that was really seminal information about climate change, and people were excited about it. But you know what? They weren't as excited about him as they were about those kids when they got up and they spoke. So
I would love it. Yeah, they sound amazing, and just to see that young people are doing that and are getting involved that way is so encouraging. And so hopefully, if the schedule allows, they'll be there and be featured, as community members, as artists, as people who work for peace. It will start at 10:30 a.m. People should start gathering at 10. And we plan to wrap up around 11:45, noon at the latest, rain or shine. And we're here, we're doing it for those 4 goals. And goal number 1 is to honor the lives lost and never forget, including the children who were killed and the 2 adults who were killed in Texas. Obviously, all of that, all of it. And the other 3 goals are related to gun legislation. I'll just read them real quick. So it is enhanced universal background checks for gun purchases, assault weapons ban. So in particular, the AR-15 or a version of the AR-15, which is an assault rifle, assault weapon, was used in almost every mass shooting the past 20 years has involved that particular weapon. And a repeal of the Protection of Lawful Commerce in Arms Act. I pulled that up, and I'll just read really quickly. It says, it's an act to prohibit civil liability actions from being brought or continued against manufacturers, distributors, dealers, or importers of firearms or ammunition for damages, injunctive, or other relief resulting from the misuse of their products by others.
It basically gives the gun companies immunity.
Misuse. You can misuse a gun. I mean, of course you can misuse a gun, and there should be no law that says you can't sue. So, and those are the 3.
Can I just add? It's not just the gun manufacturers; it's the gun dealers, it's the gun shows,
distributors.
It's the whole. Yeah,
it's a problem.
The whole industry,
right?
Yeah, the whole industry. There was a clip circulating that showed, they like had a 14-year-old boy or a 16-year-old boy going around trying to buy cigarettes, trying to buy porn, trying to, buy all these things. And he he had a little camera hidden on him, and he would be turned down everywhere, and trying to buy beer at the convenience store. And then he goes to a gun trade show, and they just set him right up.
Wow.
It makes me think of Michael Moore. I was going to say Michael Moore when before it's Michael Mann is the guy who did the hockey puck graph, the famous scientist. But Michael Moore's movie, if you never saw it, Bowling for Columbine, it starts right out. It's funny and it's horrifying at the same time. Where it starts right out with this bank that's giving away free guns with a new account, a bank account. I mean, this is why we have such a gun problem that it's just. And I mean, he does it in a very funny way when he's showing it, but it's like what, not a toaster, electric tea kettle or something. No, guns with their new bank account.
There's one thing I wanted to add. The march, all in all, it's I think it's 0.25 miles, right, Ekaete? Or it's about
it's really short.
Mile. So for people,
0.25.
0.25,
like
a
quarter mile, right?
Quarter mile. So it's really not like an arduous march by any means. So just wanted to highlight.
I told you about me and decimal points. For a second, I thought, wait, it's because we talked about a longer one, but Deidra quite rightly, it makes it a lot simpler to make it shorter.
Yes,
and
more people. Yeah, I think those are all the details of the march as we have them now. But I'm sure a lot more will develop in the next 10 days. So.
And we'll have QR codes and signs as well in regards to people continuing the fight for gun control after the march. We want people to write their council members, to write their legislatures, to talk, about, repealing the laws that are supporting or protecting the gun industry. We want, for laws to be passed to give more, to control the gun industry as well. So we want people to tell their council members, their assembly members, the Senate and so on, about what we want. So we'll also have that available as well in the next week or so, that we'll have a letter already that you can just sign and say and send it to your respective legislature, and anything else we can do to continue the fight, because it doesn't end after the rally. This is still a continuing fight. It's still a continuing protection for our communities that we are still fighting it. So we'll have that available as well, and we want everybody just to be in oneness and solidarity for this particular struggle. It's not the end all, but like Rachel said, it is one part, that can help to save lives.
Yeah, and Deidra, you just got me thinking of something when you said to protect our community. That's one of the reasons that this is so insidious. It was not even somebody from our community. So, we have to get to the root of this for sure, period, for this country. But if we think even about our community, and yes, there's too much gun violence in our community. However, this kind of mass shooting has never happened. And it was from somebody on the outside, which means that the only way we can control that is through gun legislation, until we can help get to the root of people who live 3 hours away from us, right? And so, like what you just said is so spot on, protecting our community. So how else can we do it unless we take action?
So one of the things is, this federal legislation that we want and need. And so we will be, talking about, if there's a petition that we can put on, it'll be on this page, so we're going to, on the page that the QR code will bring people to, that people can sign a petition, et cetera. But I know I was just reading in the Buffalo News that the mayor had a big conference call with a bunch of other mayors and said, well, we need federal legislation. I want to say, agreed, we do. But you know what? As soon as I read that, I thought, well, yes, 1,000 times yes. But in the meanwhile, why don't we want to make it that assault rifles are illegal in Erie County? Why don't we want to do that? Why can't we do that? So we can do that, so we can set that up so that people can ask for it. And then, if our legislators don't want to do it, can we make them? No. But we can also, rethink whether they're necessarily the persons that we want in there or not. That's something that each person, so it will just so there's a lot of different things for those three things. And they're not the only three things. There's a lot of other things that could be done and should be done. There's things about the ghost guns and the bumper stocks or something that you can put on to make it be, like make a semi-automatic into an automatic, or I don't really know, and I'm not sure. I don't know how much we need to know, when what we need to do is to get them to reduce, to put up more impediments, universal background checks. I loved your story, Rachel, about the 14-year-old going around.
I know, it's insane. And I think it also, too, part of the point of it is to show that the gun industry and the politicians that support it are just expecting everyone to back down eventually or forget about it. And so I think it's about doing whatever we can to show them that we're still, we haven't forgotten about this. Like, we're still going to do everything we can to make a difference, and we're not just going to, they're just banking on everyone getting to a point where they feel helpless and letting the way that things go continue. I mean, because it happened after Parkland, or it happened after Sandy Hook. Like, people get riled up for a week, 2 weeks, like maybe a month or two, and then the gun industry and the politicians that support it have seen that, you know, if they kind of wait long enough, people they won't forget about it, but they'll run out of steam. It's like a standoff, and we're the little people here, and they have every resource to stand for as long as they want to, and they're just kind of like staring us down, waiting for us to back down. So I think that that's a part of it too, just showing over and over again that we're not going to just back down.
You know, one thing I like to throw out so that we can quickly go around on this, just the mental health question that they bring up sometimes. And I want to say, as a qualified clinical social worker, there is no way that you can effectively screen all of that. Now, they're not to say that there shouldn't be red flag laws, or that there shouldn't be, people getting reported because they're clearly a possible risk of doing something, or they're threatening to do things. But in terms of, as I said, that the vast majority of gun issues is from suicide, and my ex-husband shot himself, killed himself. So anyway, that the vast majority of domestic is domestic violence and suicide, because a gun makes it doesn't mean that's the only way of committing suicide, but it's so easy. If a person has a gun, it's so easy for something small to go out of control, or for somebody who's been okay, and then something that they just, are going crazy at some point, or even accidents. That's another thing. There's big, a lot of accidents in children, getting their hands on guns. So that's another. So there's all this legislation. But I just wanted to say that thing about the mental health is that mental health we all have our own mental health issues at different times.
Right.
Go ahead, Rachel.
Well, I don't want to skirt around the mental health conversation, because I do. But I just wanted to bring up one other point.
Sure.
I saw today that Chris Murphy, the senator from Connecticut, he said that there have been 18 mass shootings since Uvalde. So, there have been so many more, but these don't even get the same media or publicity. But it's just there was something like at a barbecue over the weekend. There was something, and I don't know what qualifies a mass shooting. I don't know if it's what the technical number is.
Four more, something like that.
But these things just become so regular that we become, we don't think about it as much. So back to the mental health conversation, but it's just something that it's so commonplace. Is it all mental health?
Well, that's related. That's related to the mental health conversation.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Deidra, I think you were going to say something.
No, it's just, those are all the different symptoms of a sick society.
Mm-hmm.
They're all symptoms, and yes, mental health has something to do with it. We tend to forget that when you have any group, any color really, that go through a sense of oppression or injustice, or they feel it's injustice, the mental health issue skyrockets. Because you're no longer in a healthy mental state, you're no longer in a socially healthy, state of being. Now, because there is some type of injustice, or you understand that there's some type of injustice, now you have to cope, okay? And learning how to cope, learning what to do about it, how to deal with your own so-called oppression, or your own issues within your community. usually in a poverty, stricken community, Black or white or any other color for that matter.
Right.
There's going to be mental health issues, no matter if they're, short term or long term. So yes, of course that goes with it automatically when you have a class system, when you have middle class, poverty, and a elite class of people, you're going to have mental health issues.
Right. And there are so many issues in our shame-based and very markedly unequal society. We have the worst income and asset distribution in the developed world. So we have the rich people, and then we have the most very poor people in the developed world. But anyway, you know what? We're getting close towards the end. So I thought if we can just go around with, you don't have to be very brief, just some main thoughts that each one of you has about, how people. Well, first of all, I want to just say June 11th, Saturday at 10:30 at our starting point of
Jefferson and Glenwood.
Thank you, Jefferson and Glenwood. And then, and then just to each go around, like sort of what's our biggest hope? What gives you hope on that? Is there? Maybe we go around with this. Is there reason to hope on this issue? Is that too hard a question? That one might be tougher.
That's
like
a really
yes or
good
no
question.
I was gonna. I liked
what
the
your
first
final
version
words?
Of the question.
What?
The first version of the question, which was what gives you hope, versus
okay, what gives you hope? Sure. What gives
so
us hope?
I will say
Okay,
one
well,
thing. Go
ahead.
No, please go ahead, Rachel.
So one thing that gives me hope is I know a lot of GoFundMe campaigns have been started around the families of the victims of the Tops shooting and Uvalde and a lot of these big tragedies, and what gives me hope is when you see people set goals of trying to raise $25,000 or $30,000 and $200,000 comes in and you realize you're not alone in being one of those people who feels so deeply affected by what happened. And you're not alone in wanting to do what you can to help others who have been affected. And I think specifically with the Tops shooting, there was a GoFundMe that was started and they raised $100,000 in like 2 days. And to me, that is so encouraging because it just makes me feel like I'm not alone in how I feel.
Mm-hmm.
And Ekaete, what would you?
Yeah, I like both questions, but I'll answer, is there a reason to hope in this situation? I would say yes, because we're still here. So we're still here for a reason and a purpose. And we're here to try to help the generation after us. And hope is not a strategy, but it's an anchor.
Wonderful.
Deidra.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Beautiful. Exactly. I think that I usually say where there's life, there's hope. While we're still living, we have, we can imagine a new way to exist. We can imagine a better world. And as long as we have that imagination, we can start to put that into action and start to create a new world, a better world. So, when I look at our youth and I see their minds and I know that it's about the transformation of the mind, that's what gives me hope. I know that minds can be transformed. I know things can, people can change the way they look at things. People can change the way they understand the world and how they deal with the world. There are many other countries that have good, gun control laws, what have you, and that are changing their societies. We can do it too, even if we're built on corruption. We have to dig up that root and make it new again, make a new tree.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I so appreciate everything that each of you said, and I want to just add this for, some people may have heard this already before who watched another show we did with our Peace Jammers right before their last session for this session. But during, the process of Peace Jam over the past couple of months, they had to pick a global call to action project, and they had like 10 different areas, and they picked the area of ending racism and hate. And they picked that topic, and then they picked and made up and then selected amongst their different slogans about it. They picked negate the hate, rise above with love. And so then they had made this banner too. And so,
Yeah.
it's so as you say, it's the youth that gives us hope. Another thing that gives me hope is the idea crisis equal to opportunity, because that the Chinese character for crisis is the same as the one for opportunity, because when things are going and people are at sort of their wits end on things have to change, then sometimes that's when they change. So that that love. So I'm going to say, in the end, with our indigenous friends, when they end things, then they end with this thing that one person says, the person who opened it said, Nyahweh, which means, it sounds like it means thank you, and it's sort of, it does mean, but it's thankfulness to the whole creator, the creation, to all that love. And then the people say no. So I'm going to say Nyahweh, and then you could say,
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. So I want to say I couldn't be more grateful to each of you for taking the time and for all the hard work that people are doing to make this a success. And we are going to make this campaign. We're taking, co-sponsors so people can see that on the on the Western New York Peace Center website at WNYPC.org. You can come out to co-sponsor or just come out on Saturday, June 11th. So in the meanwhile, this is Talking Peace, and together we've been talking peace in truth and love. Thank you all so very much.
Thank you.
Great show.
Thank you.
Great